I am Valeria Messalina, wife of the Emperor Claudius. But tonight I am not the Empress of Rome. Tonight I am a hunted woman, trapped in the shadows of my own home, listening to the echoes of what should not exist in this life, of what does not belong in this world. My palace, so majestic and full of life during the day, has been transformed into a place of shadows when night falls. The walls breathe secrets that not even those closest to me know, but I have learned to listen to them. And I have learned, to my dismay, that there are forces in Rome that not even an emperor can control. It all began 2 moons ago at a dinner party. Claudius was away on state business, and I was hosting a soiree for Rome's most powerful families. Laughter, wine, the usual plotting disguised as pleasantries. Everything seemed normal. Until a man, a stranger no one remembered inviting, stood before me. His face, pale as marble, and his eyes, those eyes, looked at me in a way I can never forget. They were dark, empty, but with a gleam, a subtle menace that made me feel vulnerable for the first time in years.
Empress,
He said, bowing his head, but his voice was a whisper, almost inaudible, as if it came from some forgotten corner of the world.
Rome keeps secrets, even from you.
No one else seemed to notice his presence, not even my guards. And when I tried to look for him among the guests after dinner, he had vanished as if he had never existed. That same night, the dreams began. I woke up in the dark, gasping for air. Something had shaken me deep inside, a bad feeling. In my dreams, I walked through the streets of Rome, but the city was empty. There was no life, only shadows. I could hear whispers in the distance, voices speaking in languages I didn't know, but somehow understood. At the end of my walk, I always came to the same place, a hidden chamber beneath the Palatine Hill. A room where no living person was to enter, and there the stranger from dinner waited for me, his eyes fixed on me, as if he were waiting for something. Always the same. A sentence, an echo that made me wake up with a start.
Rome owes the dead, and you, Messalina, will be their payment.
The days passed, but the sense of danger did not go away. I began to avoid sleep, fearing to return to that room under the hill. And then the events in the palace began. At first they were small things. A cold breeze in the corridors at midnight, the sound of footsteps in empty rooms, doors closing by themselves. I thought they were just playing tricks on my exhausted mind, but it soon became clear that something else was going on. One night, while Claudia was sleeping, I heard the sound. The unmistakable scuff of footsteps flitting through the halls of my dorm. I rose silently, listening to every creak of the floor beneath my bare feet. Something wasn't right. Something terrible was happening within those walls. And the worst part was that I knew, deep down, that the strange man from dinner had something to do with it. I followed the sounds through the dark corridors until I reached the triclinium room, where we held our big dinners and meetings. It was empty, but the air there was different, heavy. Then I saw him. At first I thought my eyes were betraying me, but no. There in the middle of the room was a figure, not quite solid, as if the air itself had taken shape. It was him, the man from the dinner.
You know what you have to do. Rome demands a sacrifice. If you don't, they will come for you.
He said, though his lips didn't move. His voice was in my head, echoing through my thoughts. My legs were shaking, but I didn't back away. Something was compelling me to stay there, listening, watching.
Rome is not just for the living.
Her form seemed to distort with each passing second. She whispered, and suddenly I understood. This city did not belong solely to those who walked its streets during the day. Rome had a hidden realm, a world that existed in the shadows. And I had awakened something that should not have been disturbed. What do you want from me? My voice came out broken, weaker than it had ever been. I, the Empress, full of power and influence, was nothing more than a shadow before this entity. "What do you expect from me?" The man smiled, and the chill in the room intensified.
The dead demand justice. Those who were forgotten, those whom Rome sacrificed to erect its columns. They are impatient, and you, Messalina, will be their coin.
I collapsed to the ground, and the medallion I always wore, a gift from my ancestors, began to glow with a dim light, as if responding to that darkness. It was then that I realized I had no choice. The medallion was the key, the door to that other realm he spoke of. The man faded away, but his message remained etched in my mind. The following nights were even darker. The palace became a place of terror. The whispers of the dead filled the halls, and shadows seemed to come to life. Every nook, every corner hid something I couldn't see, but it was always there, stalking me. The last night was the worst. I woke from a restless sleep, the medallion burning on my chest as if it wanted to burn me. I knew something had changed. The shadows no longer merely stalked me from the corners. Now they were there, present, waiting for me. I felt their presence in my bedroom, the weight of their invisible eyes on me. I stood up, almost as if something was pushing me to do so, and walked through the palace. Doors opened before me, the hallways growing darker the further I went. At the end of the hallway, I found a door I didn't remember seeing before. It was ajar, and inside was a dim, flickering light. I stepped inside, my heart pounding in my ears, and there it was, the chamber of my dreams, the room I'd seen time and time again. And in the center of the room, the man from dinner, waiting for me.
You have reached the end, Messalina.
He said, and his voice was the same one I had heard in my dreams.
Rome does not forget the dead, and you will be its queen.
The cold in the room was unbearable, but I was no longer afraid. I knew what I had to do. I walked to the center of the room, the medallion in my shaking hand. I lifted it, and in that moment, darkness enveloped me. Rome had debts, and I was its payment. And so I became the empress of a kingdom that no one speaks of. A kingdom that lives in the shadows of this great city, where the dead wait and watch.